But what is up, y'all? It's Cool and Steve. I'm back with another YouTube video, and we're here to recap what we've seen so far in the 2026 NBA Finals, of course, between the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs. And as we know, it is the Knicks who are up 2-0 in the series, at going home to Madison Square Garden for 2 games in front of those rabid New York fans. And they have the upper hand. They have the advantage. They've played obviously amazing going into the finals, and they've been able to keep that going through 2 games in San Antonio. How will the Spurs respond? I'm going to get into that in this video as I go through the glass half empty and glass half full scenarios for both teams. Now, obviously, when we look at the Knicks, this is a team that has now won 13 playoff games in a row. I can't remember the last playoff team that's done that. They won 8 playoff games in a row on the road. Now that ties the 2001 Lakers for the most in league history in the playoffs. So to say they're white hot obviously is an understatement. I've been saying that for weeks now, and it hasn't slowed down. They've gotten some really good production. When you look at the glass half full scenario, obviously they're going home for 2 games. That's a huge boost. Game 3, especially, they're going to have those crowd meters to see just how loud that crowd is. They're going to try to blow the roof off of Madison Square Garden in Game 3, that crowd is. So look for that. The crowd really traveled well going to San Antonio, as we saw on some social media posts as well. A lot of Knicks fans, obviously because the tickets are so expensive in New York, traveled down to San Antonio to get some tickets and stay there for a couple days. And I wouldn't say they took over Frostbank Center in San Antonio, but they definitely made their presence known. So that fan base is rabid, and they have a lot to cheer for. Karl-Anthony Towns, to me, has so far been the MVP of this series, just because of what he's been able to do to win me offensively, pulling him out of the paint so he can't back there and play free safety, and then on defense, pushing him out of the paint, making him take those tough shots and forcing him to put the ball on the floor and try to out-dribble and try to show his guard skills, which is at a disadvantage for the Spurs. Now, aside from Cat, we can look at it as glass half empty, or glass half full, rather. The fact that Jalen Brunson has not actually shot well in either game. He was 12 for 31 in Game 1. He was 7 for 25, I believe, in Game 2. So that probably isn't going to continue much longer. He's gotten some good looks, but he has been hounded by those athletic guards that the Spurs throw at him. So that's kind of thrown off the rhythm a little bit. And also, he's not getting some of the calls that he usually gets during the regular season. He's very good at foul baiting. So, but obviously it's the finals. They kind of let some of those sort of things go a little bit. So I think that's affected his shooting percentage just a bit. But the Knicks have gotten such key contributions from some of the other players. Josh Hart hasn't scored hardly at all, honestly. He had 3 points in Game 1 and none in Game 2, but he's done pretty much everything else that the Knicks need him to do. He had 15 rebounds in Game 1. That's outstanding. OG Anunoby has been very solid, very steady. He's had 17 points in both games. Mikal Bridges didn't play well in Game 1, but Game 2, he was brilliant. 20 points, rebounding, assisting, playing defense. He's been great. In the Knicks bench, I said before the series started in my preview that the Knicks bench did not have the advantage against the Spurs bench. I was wrong about that, at least so far. You look at Alvarado, you look at Mitchell Robinson playing through that injury, Deuce McBride, and especially Landry Shamet. He's had huge 3-pointers in both games. So the Knicks bench has severely outplayed the Spurs bench, in my opinion. Now, as far as the glass half empty scenario for the Knicks, I will say playing as many playoff games as they have and winning as many in a row as they have, 13 in a row, something we haven't seen in a long time, if not ever. You know, they won Game 1 by 10, they won Game 2 by 1, and the Spurs definitely had their shot in both games to win, and the Knicks just snatched it away. So I do worry if their legs maybe getting just a little bit tired. Obviously, the Spurs are the younger team, which can work against them as far as inexperience, but can work in their favor as far as energy. The Knicks have a more veteran squad. They're not old per se, but a more veteran squad. And going up 2-0, going to Madison Square Garden, I will say the pressure does shift to New York because a lot of people are looking at San Antonio and saying, okay, they're the young team. It looks like it just may not be their time yet. They had a great year, but they still have some things to learn. And more people are choosing the Knicks to win the series now. And so with that, more pressure shifts to them. So if they're not able to serve on their home court, that may shift some things as far as momentum goes out of their favor, and then it becomes anybody's series. It's kind of like the heavyweight fighter that's used to having the quick knockouts. If you can show that you can take them to the deep waters and take them to the deeper rounds, how much energy they're going to have left. That's kind of the scenario that the Spurs are hoping for because they've been through some of the longer playoff series versus the Knicks. Versus what the Knicks have gone through anyway. 2 sweeps, even with the Hawks series, the last 3 games were no contest. Most of these wins in these 13-game playoff streak have been blowouts. These 2 games were not. And so are the Spurs getting confidence against them? That could be a thing. So just some things to look out for the Knicks, but it's clear right now they have the advantage. And obviously if they win game 3, they're going to have the massive advantage, and they're going to have history in the corner because no team has come back from a 3-0 lead to lose to win the finals. So, and not that I see this being the first. So that's a scenario for the Knicks being glass half empty. Now with the Spurs, as far as the glass half full being a fact, I think when I look at this team play, I kind of sort of get the feeling they're starting to feel their way through the series, and maybe they are figuring out the Knicks to a degree anyway, even though they've lost both games. Game 2 was a much better effort than game 1. Wemby, and I guess this can kind of be a half full, half empty thing. Obviously, as we've seen, he's kind of been pushed out of the paint a little bit. Karl Anthony Towns is guarding him, OG Anunoby's guarding him. They have that strength advantage, and they're really using that against him. So that's been a bit of one of the criticisms of Wemby is that sometimes he gets into that mode where he wants to show that he has the skills of a 6'5" or 6'6" player rather than someone who's 7'5", 7'6". And you see that in the way he plays. This is why he's not shooting that great from the field, despite having the size advantage that he has. And so that's one of the things. Him putting the ball on the ground, no matter how good your handles are, you're still 7'5", and you're guarding guys that are much shorter than you, that are quicker, and so it's easier to get them, get their hands in there and get steals. The Knicks have had quite a few of those in this series so far, and that's part of the reason. So that being said, his shot selection was better in game 2, especially in that second half. First half he was struggling a bit. That second half he's really turned it on. You saw more layups, you saw more dunks. Even with the final shot, obviously he had the final shot in his hands and missed it. I do have to question why he's getting the ball out that far from the perimeter with 4 or 5 seconds left. That probably should be a play for one of the Spurs guards to get it, try to penetrate the paint, and either get a floater, get an easy bucket, or lob it up to Wemby. That probably would have been the play, but obviously that's way easier said than done, and I'm no coach, so there's that. But his shot selection was better, but he's going to need some help too. Now, something else the Spurs can hang their hats on is the fact that defensively they have been able to neutralize Jalen Brunson as far as his efficiency from the field, putting a lot of those athletic bodies on a Brunson who is very skilled but is not the most athletic player. That has seemed to affect him to a degree in this series, even though he's been big in the fourth quarter, and that's what's helped kill the Spurs. So that's, again, another half empty, half full sort of scenario for the Spurs. They've done a good job with that, and so they have to keep that going, but they're probably going to have to focus on another player for the Knicks to try to shut down because the others are getting off despite Jalen's shooting woes. Now, the other glass half full scenario for the Spurs will be this. I don't get the feeling, despite being down 2-0, that they feel like they can't come back in the series and that they can't come back and win. Yes, they are going into an intimidating environment in Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, those rabid New York fans, and then playing against the Knicks, which already is hard enough. So they do have that, but you do see the confidence level in their play, really in both of these games. They've just been out executed really in the second half. We're in that second, third quarter, and then into the fourth quarter, especially in game one. So I don't see their confidence level dwindling. I don't see them looking at the Knicks as a team that's this insurmountable mountain that they have to surpass. And remember, they've had big road wins in the postseason already. They had it in Portland when they went to Portland, tied 1-1. They had them in Minnesota in that second round series, and of course, against the Thunder, and of course that game 1 win in overtime, or double overtime, I believe it was, and then of course the game 7 win. So I don't see this team lacking confidence when it comes to hanging with the Knicks, or beating the Knicks, or playing on the road. Now, of course, we already mentioned one glass half empty scenario for San Antonio, that being Wemby being out physical, and then, of course, the Knicks' strategy when he's on defense, drawing him out of the paint, and also his tendency to try to put the ball on the ground and shoot from the outside. The other one is offensively, who's going to be that second guy, that definitive second guy for the Spurs that's going to step up and take control of this series? We all thought it would be Stephon Castle, and it should be Stephon Castle. The problem is it hasn't been Stephon Castle. He's been neutralized, I think, offensively by Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart and OG Anunoby, who kind of switched off on him. But it's mostly been Bridges guarding him, and he's done a fantastic job on Stephon Castle. He's not shooting the ball very well in either game. He's 5 of 14 in game 1. He wasn't much better in game 2. Julius Champagnie had a good game 1, wasn't as good game 2. De'Aaron Fox wasn't good hardly at all in game 1. He was really good in game 2, just not good enough to offset what the Knicks were doing. Dylan Harper's been solid off the bench, but he's really been the only guy off the bench that's played really good ball. And even he hasn't really gone off the way he was able to do so against Oklahoma City. Same thing with Stephon Castle. Those versions of those two players are what the Spurs, I think, are going to need to not only get back into the series, but to have a great shot at winning these series. Until that happens, it's pretty much going to be all on Wemby, and I don't know if he's going to be able to go off the way he was able to go off earlier in this postseason. So, guys, that's the skinny on the situation regarding the NBA Finals so far. Like I said, Knicks are up 2-0. Game 3, obviously, switches to New York City. This is probably, since they last won the championship, the closest they've been to a championship since that time, which is 1973. So they can feel it. The Knicks fans can feel it, how close they are to it. And that place is going to be absolutely rocking. I hope they screw in the bolts really tight on the roof at Madison Square Garden. I know they did renovations a few years back. Let's hope that works, because that's going to be put to the test with how loud it's going to be in there. So, Game 3 tomorrow night. There in New York. Let's see how the Spurs respond. Let's see what adjustments they make. Let's see how the Knicks handle this pressure, being up 2-0 in the finals versus the other two series against inferior teams. And let's see who takes on. Let's see who takes on the bacon. So, with that being said, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. So until next time, Cool Hand Steve out.